March 31st, 2023, Winona, Minnesota. For Madeline Kingsbury, this was supposed to be a Friday like any other. A 26-year-old clinical research coordinator and mother of two, her life was built on a foundation of routine, care, and future plans. At 8 a.m., she and the father of her children, Adam Fravel, dropped their kids off at daycare. It was a mundane morning ritual, the kind that anchors a quiet life in the Midwest. By 8:15 a.m., Madeline sent a final, playful text message to her sister. It was the last pulse of her digital life. Madeline was expected to arrive at her office at the Mayo Clinic by 9 a.m. She never logged on. She didn't answer calls. She didn't respond to frantic messages from her family. When her children were not picked up from daycare that afternoon, the silence at the end of the driveway transformed from a mystery into a nightmare. Inside the home on County Road 12, everything seemed perfect. Madeline's phone, her wallet, and her jacket were all there. Her van was parked in the driveway. It was as if she had simply dissolved into the air between her garage and her front door. How does a person vanish from their own home in broad daylight without a single witness? Investigators immediately turned to the one person who saw her last, Adam Fravel. He claimed that after dropping the kids off, they returned home, and he left at 10 o'clock on his dark-colored Chrysler town and country van to run errands. But the archive of neighborhood surveillance would soon shatter his timeline. Cameras from nearby homes captured the dark van leaving and returning to the residence. During the precise window when Madeline vanished, times that Adam had failed to mention, but it wasn't just the movement that raised red flags. It was the mechanical telemetry. The van was tracked traveling south toward Fillmore County, weaving through backroads to avoid highway sensors. Why would a routine trip to the store involve a detour through the rugged, isolated brush of rural Minnesota? While Adam maintained his innocence, the physical silence of the woods began to tell a much darker story. Madeline's digital trail had stopped cold, but the path of that dark van was leading investigators toward a discovery that would take 70 days to uncover. In the next chapter, we examine the shadows in the woods and the massive search effort that challenged the limits of forensic recovery. By April 2023, the quiet community of Winona had transformed into a mobilization center. Over 2,000 volunteers surged into the rugged terrain of southeastern Minnesota. They weren't just looking for a person. They were battling the geography itself. Fillmore County is a labyrinth of dense brush, limestone caves, and sprawling outbuildings. It is a land that knows how to keep a secret. As the days turned into weeks, the FBI and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension joined the effort. But despite the drones, the K-9 units, and the thermal imaging, the earth remained silent. It was a forensic void that mirrored the digital blackout from Madeline's home. While the external search covered thousands of acres, an internal investigation was deconstructing the life Madeline lived behind closed doors. Adam Fravel continued to deny any involvement, but the archive was beginning to reveal a pattern of domestic volatility. Friends and family began to speak of a relationship that was fractured. Court documents later hinted at a history of control and friction. But the most disturbing revelation came from the house itself. Investigators noticed that while Madeline's personal belongings were all present, there was an eerie order to the home, a lack of the chaotic struggle you would expect from an abduction by a stranger. It suggested a tactical extraction, much like the one we saw in Springfield, where the perpetrator knew exactly how to move through the space without leaving a trace. With no body and no weapon, the investigation shifted to the behavior of the machines. Forensic technicians began a deep dive into the van's infotainment system and Adam's cellular data. They discovered that on the morning of the disappearance, a phone associated with the household didn't just stop sending texts, it was purposely manipulated. This wasn't a case of a dead battery. It was a calculated attempt to create a digital dead zone, but the archive has a long memory. Even in a dead zone, devices record pings to towers that can be reconstructed months later. The path of the dark van wasn't random. It was circling a specific area of Fillmore County that the Fravel family knew intimately. As the 70-day mark approached, the psychological toll on the family reached a breaking point. The public demanded an arrest, but the law requires more than suspicion. It requires the physical truth. Adam Fravel remained free, watching as the search narrowed down, inch by inch, toward a property he thought was safe from the eyes of the law. But in June 2023, the silence of the Minnesota brush was about to be broken by a single, devastating discovery. June 7, 2023, exactly 68 days after Madeline Kingsbury sent her final text, the physical silence of Fillmore County was finally shattered. Acting on a lead derived from the meticulous reconstruction of the dark van's movements, investigators focused on a remote stretch of brush near Highway 43. It was here, hidden off a gravel road on property used frequently by the Fravel family, that a deputy made the grim discovery. Madeline's remains were found concealed in a manner that was both deliberate and desperate. The 70-day period of uncertainty had ended, but for the forensic team, the real work was just beginning. The truth in a cold case is often microscopic. As the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension processed the scene, they weren't just looking for clues. They were looking for a signature. Madeline had been wrapped in a grey graphicist item that prägt Chilling Linky back to the home in Winona. But the most undeniable evidence was environmental. Forensic soil analysis revealed that the specific mineral composition and organic detritus found at the recovery site matched the material extracted from the wheel wells of Adam Fravel's van. The earth he tried to use as a tomb had instead become a silent witness, recording his arrival and departure with chemical precision. The dead zone he attempted to create digitally was now being bypassed by the physical evidence of the ground itself. Within hours of the discovery, the archive was updated. Adam Fravel was taken into custody and charged with second-degree murder. The legal threshold had been met not through a confession, but through the convergence of two worlds, the digital and the physical. Investigators revealed that while Adam claimed to be home during the critical hours of Madeline's disappearance, his own digital footprint betrayed him. His phone data, though seemingly quiet, had registered handshakes with cell towers that placed him in the exact vicinity of the recovery site in Fillmore County. It was a forensic trap 68 days in the making. The man who thought he had designed a perfect disappearance had, in fact, left a trail of breadcrumbs in the air and a signature in the soil. The recovery of Madeline Kingsbury wasn't just a win for the Winona Police Department. It was a testament to the fact that in the modern age, a person cannot simply be deleted. Every movement leaves a scar on the archive. But as the legal system prepared for a trial that would captivate the nation, a bigger question remained. How would Madeline be remembered as a victim of a dark morning, or as the catalyst for a change that would protect thousands of others? In 2024, the legal system delivered its final entry into this file. After weeks of testimony and the presentation of a mountain of forensic data from the digital pings of cell towers to the chemical composition of the Minnesota soil, the jury reached its conclusion. Adam Fravel was found guilty on all counts, including first-degree premeditated murder and first-degree domestic abuse murder. The archive now records a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Justice, though delayed by 70 days of calculated silence, was finally served. The machines and the earth had spoken where the perpetrator would not. But the impact of Madeline Kingsbury's story transcends a single courtroom. Out of the darkness of her disappearance, a new light was born. Her family and the community championed Maddie's law, a legislative breakthrough in Minnesota designed to protect victims of domestic violence and streamline the search process for missing adults in high-risk situations. Just as the forensic breakthroughs of 2026 changed the Long Island serial killer case, Maddie's Law ensures that the lessons learned from this tragedy are etched into the legal archive forever. It is a reminder that a name is not just a statistic in a police file. It is a human life that demands a response. Madeline is no longer just a missing persons case. She is a legacy of protection. Madeline Kingsbury was a mother, a daughter, and a professional who did everything right that morning. Her digital trail ended at 8:15 a.m., but her story will never truly close. At the Cold Case Archive, we believe that as long as a name is remembered, a case is never truly cold. If you believe that every victim deserves a voice and every mystery deserves a scientific resolution, subscribe to The Archive. I've left a question in the first comment of this video. In an era of total digital surveillance, why do you think some cases still take 70 days to solve? Stay vigilant. The investigation continues.